The Society of Antiquaries of London is a learned society, charged by its Royal Charter of 1751 with the encouragement, advancement and furtherance of the study and knowledge of the antiquities and history of this and other countries. Quote, "It is based at Burlington House, Piccadilly, London, and is a registered charity. Membership. Members of the Society are known as Fellows and are entitled to use the post-nominal letters FSA after the names. Fellows are elected by existing members of the Society, and to be elected persons shall be excelling in the knowledge of the antiquities and history of this and other nations, and be desirous to promote the honor, business and emoluments of the Society. The Society retains a highly selective election procedure in comparison with many other learned societies. Nominations for fellowship can only come from existing fellows of the Society, and must be signed by at least 5 and up to 12 existing fellows, certifying that, from the personal knowledge, the candidate would make a worthy fellow. Elections then occur by anonymous ballot, and a candidate must achieve a ratio of 2 yes votes for every no vote cast by fellows participating in the ballot to be elected as a fellow. Fellowship is thus regarded as recognition of significant achievement in the fields of archaeology, antiquities, history and heritage. The first secretary for the Society was William Stukely. The Society has grown to more than 2,900 fellows. History and antecedents. A precursor organization, the College of Antiquaries, was founded c. 1586 and functioned largely as a debating society until it was forbidden to do so by King James I in 1614. The first informal meeting of the modern Society of Antiquaries occurred at the Bear Tavern on the Strand on the 5th of December 1707. This early group, conceived by John Talman, John Bagford, and Humphrey Wanley, sought a charter from Queen Anne for the study of British antiquities. Its projected ventures included a series of 35 books to be issued. The proposal from the Society was to be advanced by Robert Harley, Earl of Oxford, but his dismissal from government caused it to become idle. The formalization of proceedings occurred in 1717. The first minutes at the Mitre Tavern, Fleet Street, are dated the 1st of January 1718. Those attending these meetings examined objects, gave talks, and discussed theories of historical sites. Reports on the dilapidation of significant buildings were also produced. The Society was also concerned with the topics of heraldry, genealogy, and historical documents. In 1751, a successful application for a charter of incorporation was sought by its long-serving Vice President Joseph A. Locke, which allowed the Society to own property. The Society began to gather large collections of manuscripts, paintings, and artifacts, housing such gifts and bequests, while a proper institution for them did not exist. The acquisition of a large group of important paintings in 1828 preceded the establishment of the National Portrait Gallery by some 30 years. A gift of Thomas Kenwich, which included portraits of Edward IV, Mary Tudor, and 2 of Richard III, reveal anti-Tudor bias in the later portrayal. Following the London Blitz, the Society organized many of the excavations of Roman and medieval ruins exposed by the bombing of the city, with annual surveys performed every year between 1946 and 1962. Among other finds, they discovered the previously unknown London Citadel in the northwest corner of the London Wall. The findings were summarized in 1968 by W. F. Grimes. In 2007, the Society celebrated its centennial year with an exhibition at the Royal Academy entitled Making History: Antiquaries in Britain 1707 to 2007. The tercentenary was also marked by 2 substantial publications, a collection of 17 scholarly essays on the parallel themes of the history of the society itself and changing interpretations of the material, relics of the past over the 3 centuries of its existence, and the illustrated catalogue of the exhibition, which included 15 shorter thematic essays by various expert contributors. Library. The Society's library is the major archaeological research library in the UK, having acquired material since the early 18th century. The library's present holdings number more than 100,000 books and around 800 currently receive periodical titles. The catalogue include rare drawings and manuscripts, such as the inventory of all Henry VIII's possessions at the time of his death. Is the oldest archaeological library in the country. The library holds an outstanding collection of British county histories, a fine collection of 18th and 19th century books on the antiquities of Britain and other countries, and an exceptionally wide-ranging collection of periodical titles with runs dating back to the early to mid-19th century. Publications. Vetusta Monumenta. In 1718, the Society began to publish a series of illustrated papers on ancient buildings, sites, and artifacts, mainly those of Britain and usually written by members of the Society, under the title Vetusta Monumenta. The series continued to appear on an irregular basis until 1906. The papers were published in a folio format, and were notable for the inclusion of finely engraved views and reproductions of artifacts. An engraver was employed by the Society from its inception. The earliest were George Virtue, James Bassar and successors, labouring to produce the copper plate used in the printing of the folio editions. The prints were often large and appealing, and were intended to satisfy popular demand for archaeological subject matter. Their quasi-scientific illustrations were often inset with multiple viewpoints of architectural details. A Fellow of the Society, Richard Gough, sought to expand and improve publication of the Society's research, motivated by the steady dilapidation of examples of Gothic architecture. A later series of oversize issues was used to accommodate the format of some historical works, which the Society had commissioned to be reproduced by Edward Edwards and Samuel Hieronymus Grimm in watercolour in 1771. The first issues of these were mostly done by Bassar. The first of these were the reproduction of a 16th-century oil painting of the historic scene at the Field of the Cloth of Gold. The paper for this series required a larger size than was available. The manufacturer James Watman was instructed to create a sheet 31 in × 53 in. The name given to this format is Antiquarian. The engraving of the plate, measuring 4 feet 1 in by 2 feet 3 in, required 2 years to complete. The standard printing for this series was 400 prints. The plates were carefully stored by the Society and used occasionally to fulfill later requests. Only 3 of the 7 plates still exist. Archeologia. The Society's first journal was Archeologia, of which the first volume appeared in a quarto format in 1770. The journal mainly contained papers that had been delivered at the Society's meetings. In the early years, these included many delivered in previous decades that had remained unpublished. Archaeologia continued to appear on a more or less regular basis until after the Second World War, but then became increasingly irregular, some of its ground having been taken by the Society's other journals. Only 2 volumes were published in the 1980s and 2 in the 1990s. The Society's tercentennial collection of essays of 2007 was technically published as Volume 111 of Archaeologia. No volumes have been published since, but the series has never been formally terminated. Proceedings and Antiquaries Journal. In 1843 the Society took the decision to publish some of its proceedings in a second periodical in a smaller format, initially unillustrated, which could appear on a more frequent basis than Archeologia. It was entitled Proceedings of the Society of Antiquaries of London. The first part appeared in 1844, and this first series continued until 1859, by which time 4 volumes had appeared. A second series was then begun, in which 32 volumes appeared down to 1920. In 1921 Proceedings was superseded by a new annual journal, the Antiquaries Journal. This continues to the present day, volume 94 having been published in 2014. Salon. Since the end of 2001, the Society has published a fortnightly online newsletter called Salon Clubs. The Society of Antiquaries has 2 societies to which fellows may belong. The older of these is the Cocked Hat Club, and the younger the Essay Club. The 2 clubs are rivals of sorts. Bernard Nurse noted that the Essay Club does not go in for the strange rituals that still persist in the cocked hats. The Cocked Hat Club was thus named because a cocked hat is placed before the president during meetings. The club's first meeting was held on the 3rd of January 1852 at the house of W. R. Drake. The club then met at the Albion, Drury Lane, until 1885, thereafter at the Holborn Restaurant. The Essay Club got its name from the initial letters SAR for Society of Antiquaries. List of presidents. The following have served as presidents of the Society: 1707 to 1710, 1717 to 1724, Peter Le Nevé, Norroy King of Arms, 1724 to 1750, Algernon Seymour, Earl of Hertford, afterwards 7th Duke of Somerset, 1750, Charles Lennox, 2nd Duke of Richmond, 1750 to 1754, Martin Folkes, 1754 to 1765, Hugh Willoughby, 15th Baron Willoughby of Parham, 1765 to 1768, Charles Littleton, Bishop of Carlisle, formerly Dean of Exeter, 1768 to 1784, Jeremiah Mills, Dean of Exeter, 1784 to 1785, Edward King, 1785 to 1811, George Townshend, Earl of Leicester, afterwards 2nd Marquis Townshend, 1811 to 1812, Sir Henry Englefield, 1812 to 1846, George Hamilton Gordon, 4th Earl of Aberdeen, 1846 to 1875, Philip Stanhope, Viscount Mahon, afterwards 5th Earl Stanhope, 1876 to 1878, Frederick Ouvray, 1878 to 1885, Henry Herbert, 4th Earl of Carnarvon, 1885 to 1892, Sir John Evans, 1892 to 1897, Sir Augustus Wollaston Franks, 1897 to 1904, Harold Dillon, 17th Viscount Dillon, 1904 to 1908, John Lubbock, 1st Baron Avebury, 1908 to 1914, 1919 to 1924, Sir Charles Hercules Reed, 1914 to 1919, Sir Arthur Evans, 1924 to 1929, David Lindsay, 27th Earl of Crawford, 1929 to 1934, Sir Charles Reed Piers, 1934 to 1939, Sir Frederick Kenyon, 1939 to 1944, Sir Alfred Clapham, 1944 to 1949, Sir Cyril Fox, 1949 to 1954, Sir James Mann, 1954 to 1959, Sir Mortimer Wheeler, 1959 to 1964, Dame Joan Evans, 1964–1965, Professor Sir Ian Richmond, 1965 to 1970, Francis Wormold, 1970 to 1975, J. N. L. Mayers, 1975 to 1978, Arnold Taylor, 1978 to 1981, Richard Dufty, 1981 to 1984, Christopher Brooke, 1984 to 1987, John Davies Evans, 1987 to 1991, Michael Robbins, 1991 to 1995, Professor Subari Cunliffe, 1995 to 2001, Simon Jervis, 2001 to 2004, Professor Rosemary Cramp, 2004 to 2007, Eric Funny, 2007 to 2010, Jeffrey Wainwright, 2010 to 2014, Professor Morris Howard, 2014 present, Jill Andrews,